Can you achieve extraordinary results while making the world a better place? I'm Bruce Temkin, and together we'll explore how. Welcome to Humanity at Scale, Redefining Leadership podcast. Join me as I speak with visionary leaders and top experts to uncover the secrets of humanity-centric leadership. Ready to rethink leadership? Let's dive in. At Humanity at Scale, we explore how leaders build organizations that succeed, not through profit and performance only, but by putting people, purpose, and legacy at the center. One of the biggest questions we ask is, how do you scale humanity? How do leaders maintain empathy and connection as their organizations grow? And in a world driven by technology, how do they ensure it serves the deeper needs of both employees and customers? These are questions today's guest, Renee Cacchillo, has been answering throughout her career, not just in theory, but in practice. Renee is the president and CEO of Safelite, the largest AutoGlass repair and replacement company in the U.S. Under her leadership, the company has become more than a service provider. It's a people-powered, customer-driven organization focused on the employees and customers that it serves. In this conversation, we'll explore how Renee fosters a purpose-driven culture, blends technology with empathy, and redefines legacy in modern leadership. Renee, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks, Bruce. Great to be here. Excited to join.
Always great to see you. And it's crazy to think that it's been just over 3 years since you stepped into the role of president and CEO. Probably crazier for you if you're looking.
Yes.
Looking back, what's been the most rewarding part of this journey so far? And were there any surprises that shaped your perspective as a leader?
I think probably the people aspect. So unlike being in a subject matter expert role, or actually I spent a lot of time on the customer experience role, which I absolutely love. The idea that every day, the only people who can go to market and really serve our customers and do the job that Safelite does is our people, our technicians, our front line. And that's 78% of our workforce. And I don't know that when I had my customer hat on, I paid as much attention to that as I do now as the CEO.
It's interesting. So you talk about people. For the listeners, give a sense of the size and scale of Safelite.
Yeah, so Safelite's close to between 3 and 4 billion in sales. We're over 50 states. So yes, we do serve in Alaska and Hawaii. That always makes it a challenge too. But we really pride ourselves on being the national provider of choice that people can choose when they have AutoGlass needs. And we have 14,000 associates really in our teams. About 6,000 of those are technicians who actually go to the front line and do the work every day. And then we have 2,500 or so people in our contact centers, which are geographically dispersed and all work from home now and have been since COVID. And that's another big piece of our front line, plus our supply chain, all of the people who work in our warehouses across the U.S. So we have about 90 warehouse locations so that we can ship and serve glass very quickly.
So pretty sizable organization for our listeners. Can you take us through your journey to becoming CEO? Were there key moments or decisions that prepared you for the role and shaped the leader you are today?
Yeah, I mean, I'd love to say that anyone's completely prepared. I know I wasn't. It's always a journey, but I started out in operations for a long time in my career, actually, even before I joined Safelite. Really also grew up in retail operations, then ended up going into consulting, which for me was a really great experience, being able to see so many different industries, but also how much is applicable regardless of industry. And then really when I joined Safelite, I started back in operations and moved over into the customer experience, really defining that customer-driven strategic pillar that we have. And really growing that, taking on technology, probably the hardest role of my life, really a role that requires deep analytical skills, understanding how things work together, connecting with a different type of individual, a different kind of workforce in the technology space. I then had the brand added to the responsibilities, and over time, sales, really working with all of our clients. And in each of those, I think I thought I understood the business really well. But every time I took on another step, I learned so much more. I was like, wow, I still don't understand how this place works. It's very complicated, but that's what makes it so fun and changing every year.
So what's interesting about that journey is you sort of did well in one area and then you inherited another area to lead on top of that and sort of like grew and grew. What do you think it was about your leadership style or your leadership approach that made you sort of the right person to take on all these new challenges inside of Safelite?
Well, I think I hit Safelite at a really good time, if I am fair about the situation I landed in, because we weren't as big yet. We were growing. So we were about $1 billion in revenue organization then. So you could handle more functions in a smaller organization and learn them pretty intimately. But the truth of the matter is I had to learn how to work through my people and have people who were smarter than me, experts in areas that I wasn't, and really learn how to trust and verify where we're going and include them in that versus just building things on my own and hoping the team would follow. And I think that's a really different leadership style because you have to be vulnerable. You have to go in there and admit that you don't know anything about telecom or anything about digital or anything about how do you create a TV spot. And those things are really make you vulnerable, but they also help you learn very quickly and apply across the organization.
So I'd love to explore this vulnerability topic since we went down that route. It's interesting because showing vulnerability sounds like one of your superpowers potentially, but also it's hard. People might say it's hard to maintain a position of leadership if you demonstrate that vulnerability. How do you balance the being a leader who's vulnerable, but making sure that people continue to see you as the leader?
Yeah, I think it's setting the vision and the direction, right? You don't have to be the expert to set the vision and the direction. And that's a special skill as well. But that vulnerability, it's nerve-wracking. I mean, it's probably some of the most nervous moments. I always talk about the fact that, I can tell when I'm finally on the cusp of something great because I'll sweat. Right? It'll be like, oh my goodness, I'm nervous presenting this and I'm actually scared if people are going to understand it because I'm so excited about it. But it takes it from kind of that incubator, we're just thinking about it, to actual production. And those are the greatest moments in your career. And I really think that you have to love the product you're in and stop worrying about if you're a big enough leader, but understanding that when you create something innovative and you help your team become more agile, that you see them blossom in ways that you could never have done by lifting it all yourself. And so you have to stop worrying about some of those things and actually be really excited when they shine versus when you shine.
I love that. So part of vulnerability is recognizing that you're not the one who's going to get things done, that all these people you're being vulnerable around, they're the ones who are going to actually make the success.
Exactly.
I love that. So let's move on to sort of Safelite operations. For as long as I've known you, Safelite's motto has been people-powered, customer-driven. And I think that's when we first got together, that was like the centerpiece. And I think that remains a central part of how Safelite thinks about itself. What does people-powered, customer-driven mean to you in terms of both the organization and your leadership?
Yeah, I would say if we start with people-powered, I love those two words, actually. The powered one came second, right? We started out as people first, and we switched it a couple of years ago to be people-powered because our people actually are the engine or the fuel that provides us the energy to go to that next level in service. And I believe happy people equal happy customers. And so if you really start with those premises that if your people are going to fuel you, then you build plans that support them being successful. You build plans that support them being paid at the level they need to be so that they don't think about leaving you, but they really want to have a career with you. And it won't be for everyone. And every market's different, as we've all found since we've come out of COVID. Nothing's the same as it used to be. But you really need to have the unlock of how does everyone in the organization help the people who are actually serving the customer face to face. And if you can switch that mindset, then not only are you people-powered in how you build your plans and the philosophies, but in how every single person comes to work that day is really to help their own teams succeed in serving customers. Now, customer-driven is really, for me, something also very separate and yet so connected. You can't be people-powered and then not want to be customer-driven. They go together. But for me, customer-driven is around really knowing your customer. So we could have at Safelite, we don't have loyalists that they break their windshield every month and they want to come out and have a program and I want to get a discount and I want you to remember me 7 years later. Customers don't care, right? They have a nuisance. They have a hassle. They want us to fix their problem. And our purpose is to deliver unexpected happiness to people's everyday lives. That's kind of lofty, right? For a AutoGlass company. But the truth of the matter is that we needed to understand, what did they really mean when they want great service? And it means they want it to be easy. They want to work with us digitally. They want to talk to us on the phone. They want to do things the way they want to do them, one time only. And if they never think of us again, but they had a great experience, awesome. And so we have to design things in a way that makes sense for AutoGlass, not one that makes sense for a regular purchase every month a couple of times. Very different customer expectation, even though it's the same human being.
Interesting. So I want to get to the people power in a second, but I want to talk about that unexpected happiness. As you said, you don't have loyalists, so you can't make them happy in an ongoing way. You get that one transaction, that one interaction with them. What are some examples of what Safelite has done to create unexpected happiness, or what environment you set that ultimately drives some unexpected happiness?
Yeah, I think there's a couple things. So first of all, digital was a big exploration for us that really changed that environment. It allowed us to educate. It allowed our customers to learn. It gave them a channel they expected, even though we thought it was odd that people would want to buy a windshield. It's not about us, right? Online. And so it's really about them. And so making it so easy that they can go through end to end, that they can actually go and schedule all the way through, that they can, if they need to, chat or text with somebody at that moment, but also that they can just end up calling back, or that the field can check in with them. So really making it so simple that they feel confident in the service they're going to get. And then the other piece is speed of service, right? No one wants to have a broken windshield for too long. You want to get it on the books, but you want to pick a time that works for you and in a method that works for you. So we love to mobile out to you because customers love that convenient service. And convenience is one of those big drivers. And so we are the only company that nationally can provide mobile service in our space. And that's something that we offer right now as free mobile service, something we're really excited about because we know that's what customers need. It's not always easy, but it also diversifies the roles for our technicians. They can work in shop and they can work mobile, which provides a unique experience.
And I know you, over the years, you've done a lot to look at the customer journey to understand where you can improve. And I think early on, you were one of the first, I think maybe ever, field service organizations to deliver a picture of the technician so that the people felt comfortable with who was going to come to their house. Are there any other of those memorable changes that you've made to the customer experience that you think have really differentiated Safelite?
Yeah, I mean, definitely the on my way text message that you're referring to. First of all, it's a really hard task to get a picture of every technician and have them look happy, and to make sure that the person coming is who they look like, the person showing up. And so the on my way text message, you definitely want to know who's coming to your house, especially in this day and age. The other one is that you can watch when our technician's on their way. So as they leave their last job, you can now see if they're coming to your location, that they're on their way. You can see the branch location and what to see on your confirmation email. But I would say the biggest piece around the experience that we provide is really how do we replicate it on TV? So we actually use our own technicians in our commercials. You see exactly what you're going to experience. And we're showing these different ways that you can work with us in the television commercial. Rather than talking about how great we are, we talk about how you can work with us. And I think that's made a big difference to the customers because then they feel like everything happens as planned.
And by the way, everyone listening, next time a Safelite commercial comes on, spend a little time and look at it. I love them because they really are the technicians. No actors in there, so it's pretty cool. So how do you...
Good thing it's singing if they're singing.
Okay, if you're going to watch the commercial, no judging.
No judging.
Good. So what's interesting, let's talk about the field technicians for a second, right? Because at the end of the day, Safelite, in your corporate headquarters in Columbus, you can talk about brand, you can, define all you want, but at the end of the day, the brand comes through in what this technician does with that customer. And, I know thousands, how many thousands times a day. How do you think about the field technician and make sure that they are delivering that unexpected happiness and sustaining what you want to see in terms of the Safelite brand?
Yeah, I think it's important. I mean, first of all, we're very fortunate. We have very standard ways of operating and ways that the technician and the tool sets that they use is very consistent, right? And so they actually go through the same process, whether it's in shop or mobile, every single day, every single job. And that's something that we work on with them, but it also gives them that confidence that they know how to tackle this because every vehicle is different. I know I've mobiled out with technicians and they're like, hey, this is my first Volkswagen model, whatever. And it's like they've been with us for 2 years. I mean, there's just that many types of vehicles out there. So they already have that delta to deal with. So we wanted to make the process and the tools that they use as easy as possible on them. I'd say the last couple of years, we've really had a big focus on safety. And so we want our people to come to work and leave as healthy as they did when they arrived that morning. And it's important for their families. It's important for them. It's also important for us because we can't deliver the service we provide if our people are injured. And we also want to make sure that our people have a great experience. So knowing that they're in an environment where they have the right kind of PPE solutions, the right tools to do their job, but that they can also be very effective and that we understand that this is a weight-bearing, difficult, hands-on job. However easier we can make it for them is where we're making investments so that their lives actually are better and that they can actually be productive and work longer in their role if they choose to stay in a role like a technician for many, many years because it's not physically so challenging on them.
Interesting. So it's, I know that some organizations think about hiring people that can do lots of different things and then setting them loose in the field to make things happen. But the approach of standardizing, simplifying, and tooling seems much more scalable. And does that, when you put those tools and give the technician the capabilities and the confidence, does that give them more time to think about their interactions with customers and does it change the dynamic of how they interact with customers?
It does because one, they aren't as tired. So recently we've just rolled out 5S. And so that really is around how do you standardize their work environment? How do you reduce the number of steps they have to take? But instead of us coming in and mandating, here's how 5S works, and here's exactly what you're going to do, and follow these 3 things, it's none of our workspaces are the same. So instead, we have the technicians help us design 5S for them and their own workspace. And if you're a lefty versus a righty, that's a big difference. And if you're mobile versus in shop, it's a big difference. So how do we set them up for success, reduce their number of footsteps? That way, when they're with the customer, they're much more productive. And the continuity of what they're doing just becomes very routine so that they can be successful in those different environments and they aren't as exhausted.
So nice. So you have the technicians are clearly the sort of the centerpiece, I think, of your frontline workers. But you have a whole bunch of people, thousands of them across the company. How do you ensure that all of your frontline workers feel empowered and heard, even when decisions are being made at the corporate level?
Yeah, well, first of all, Safelite's kind of an interesting organization. Even though we've grown, we still have hey, just email the CEO or anyone you want to, if you need to do that. My phone number is actually on Google, so they all know how to find me. They follow me on LinkedIn. But really, we do associate engagement surveys. We just did our mid-check pulse survey. But we really go out and visit our stores. We want to make sure that we're not just saying what we're doing, but we're actually living what we're doing and that we're actually going out and talking to technicians. We'll talk to them about what's happening in your pay plan. Are you going to level up? Or are you going to level down? How are you doing against your different KPIs? What are you seeing right now with the new tools that have just rolled out? Give us some feedback. We're getting ready to get back into big trucks and semis. What do you think of the new ladder system? So we actually ask them in person and get their feedback. And great examples, we're just now rolling out driver safety cameras. So we have 99% of the technicians who have signed off on the policy, but we're out there talking to them about why it's important. And 83% have been installed. And it's been a very seamless process, easier than we thought because we got ahead of it. We showed them the rationale of why. We showed them the pilot results, and they actually feel like they're being taken care of. So I'm sure there will be a couple individuals who really decide that they don't like having a camera system in their van, but most of them believe that it's really to make sure that we try and keep them safe. So I think we can come from that premise and you're on the floor with them every single day. We have people out in the field talking to our teams, being there. You have executive visits. They know that they matter. It's bigger than just saying that they matter.
So it's interesting. You talk about the cameras, and I want to go back to even the tracking system, right? You can imagine a technician seeing this, and okay, in one hand they're showing where I am every moment and every second of my route, and then hand they're putting in cameras It takes a lot, I would imagine, from your leadership perspective, for technicians to see this as good for the company and not just as being restrictive or being, big brother following them. Can you think about like what you do as a leader to try and break that belief that these things are not trying to impose on technicians, but trying to be good for the entire ecosystem of the company?
Yeah, I think it goes back to that being genuine around what your intent is. And so, honestly, the goal has never been to be big brother. So if we just basically, we don't even acknowledge that's a possibility. We actually do it for them. And so let's talk about the camera technology. I mean, how many Saturday technician fatality calls do you need before you realize as a CEO that something's not right here? And if you could just help one person who happened to fall asleep after a long day on their way home, or glance down at their phone when they shouldn't have even been able to see something on their phone, and that happens, then you realize that you haven't done your job, right? And that they're driving to support your company and to help customers be served. But at the end of the day, you want them to go home safe. And so it doesn't take very many examples. It's not like some big ROI thing on the P&L that's going to come through. It's really about them. And so when they see those things and you share those stories personally, right, and they hear from us that this is not us, it's not who we want to be, they deserve more from us, then they realize the intent behind it is very, very good.
So it's interesting. So on one part, you're constant focus on their needs and their performance and their effectiveness comes through. But I imagine there are often times when, you're sitting in the executive team or in a boardroom and you make decisions where the rank and file see a disconnect with that purpose and vision, right? How do you end up bringing them on board with those things, right? There's always difficult decisions that have to be made.
Yeah, I think it's the balance of, where are you on the change curve? So let me give you some examples. We're going to be introducing over the next few years new technology for our technicians, different dispatch tools, different handheld devices that show them where their appointments are, things that they probably just won't like, right? Because it doesn't have the freedom that they know today. Not that it's less free. It's just not the freedom that they know today. So the challenge will be, how do we help them embrace the change and show that it makes their lives easier? It has to have something in it that makes their job more efficient, more effective, and that they do have some level of control, right? We all like to have some control in our day. And not just be told to go all over the universe and driving to 6 mobile jobs a day. That's a rough grind every day. And so how do you let them have some input, but also show them that this gives them more transparency? And sometimes you have to go through the process. Every time we change a pay plan, all I hear about the first time we go out and talk about the new pay plan is how much they like the old pay plan. Well, no one told me they liked the old pay plan when we had the old pay plan. So it's the delta of change and being able to walk through their numbers and their stats and why it actually turned out different than what they thought the old pay plan did. It takes that level of detail from our leaders in the field to really bring them along and help them feel comfortable. And we have to do that from time to time on big projects, but it usually turns out that the majority move to the place that we're looking for if the program was designed with them as part of the design.
So interesting. So you make sure that they're part of the design. I would also say one of my advice always to people driving change is you almost don't have to listen too much to people's immediate reaction. They generally don't like what's new. It's sort of you gotta hold your tongue for a little bit and see how it settles in. Yeah,
included.
So it's interesting. So we've been talking about like some of the recent changes and upcoming changes. Having known you, I think for many years, I can't think of a time when you weren't leading through some significant change, right? To some degree, you've been, change might even define your leadership. So how do you think about sort of being a leader of change, right? As opposed to a leader who's just maintaining some operational or vision direction?
Yeah, I think there's, I'll start the question, and if I don't answer it, Bruce, just catch me. But I think one of the first epiphanies for me was instead of just ideating to ideate, because I love a new creative problem to solve, right? But it's really, for me, it's around the responsibility that we have as the market leader in this segment. And that market leader responsibility comes with, in my opinion, huge weights on the shoulders of, we need to innovate. We need to always be looking ahead. We need to widen the gap to our competition and also show them the path that they can follow, because it's going to help in the new environment of where we need to serve an AutoGlass. And actually living and believing that and having that be something I talk about with the entire organization and leadership team is that we're the market leader. This is what's expected of us. If we aren't, then we won't remain the market leader, is something that really drives that forward-looking thinking and that change agility that we need to build curiosity in what people are looking at. I'd say the other piece is really, we have something that we call being uniquely Safelite, which is a couple of different leadership principles. It talks about how do you really, inspire and embrace change is one of those principles. How do you continue to do that? It's never going to stop. I think we all have to stop thinking it's going to stop. So instead, why don't you inspire and embrace it? How do you not only plan for now, but also next? We've been really good over the years at Safelite of digging in and managing the year, but we need to look out, right? We need to know what the next 5 years include. And our leaders could tell you what we need to do now to get to that next 5 years, which hasn't always been our company history. And then the third piece is really around how do you make sure that we're not just working functionally, but that really the greatest goal is to deliver organizational value. So if what I'm working on, my very special project, and I've had many in my career that I just am so excited about, isn't what's going to help Safelite win at the end of this year or next 3 years, then maybe I need to put my project down for now and make sure that everything that I'm focused on helps the greater good of Safelite and serving as the market leader to the industry instead of something that I find to be fascinating or really great in my one area. And those are tough decisions for individuals to make, but it really helps me bring the organization along on the broader change.
That's great. Those are great principles. And if you think about those principles could lead you on multiple directions, right? That's the thing about principles. You don't know where they're going to lead. They sort of guide as you go along. So one of the ways that could possibly go, and I've never seen this at Safelite, but in other organizations go, where your strength of being the industry leader, as you say, could drive you to just focusing on dominating on price, right? It's very tempting to use market leadership to just say, we're going to continue to use leadership just so that we can sort of get price and margin and just focus that. And customers are just coming along for the journey. So we haven't talked a lot about how you listen to customers and how you put it, but how do you make sure that you're not losing sight of what customers need in terms of all of the strategies you have going forward? How do they sustain a customer power, customer driven in the world where you are the market leader?
I think that's always something you need to watch. First of all, we believe that we're more than just a glass company. And so when you think about that responsibility is bigger. We aren't just here to outprice you on windshield to provide the best service and say we're the premium brand. I also don't believe that what we do is a commodity by any means. And so we should be paid for the great service that we provide. But there's so many more things that we do in our service offering and the ways that we go to market. And so back to the customer question, right? We really do listen to the voice of the customer. We do that through voice of the customer programs with Qualtrics and other providers that we use. We also really look at what is the industry looking at right now in the marketplace? How are they searching? What are they looking for? Even with, when we meet with Google, we want to understand what is the change in the search terms? What are people shopping for? Is this a do nothing timeframe? How do we go to market and meet that do nothing person the best we can? And then also there's no consistency by state. And so we have more cash customers in California than I would in New York. Even though there's cash customers in New York too. And what they value are two very different things. And so sometimes the value is convenience. Sometimes the value is price. And so we have to really flex that and also look at things down to even the make model level of the vehicle. So if we don't listen, then we'll immediately see it in both the customer reviews that are out there from an online perspective, which was a place that we weren't paying enough attention to. And we're starting to really grow in that because I think younger generations really do look at those online reviews more. And then we've always had a net promoter score to understand really what's happening in the service that we provide. And for me, it's not so much just the total score, but it's also the continual improvement as we implement new things for customers that really matter to them. You can see it come through in the net promoter score.
So I love that. So as a market leader, you're not trying to just look at price. You're trying to earn differential service value for the client. Yeah. Great. As we're talking a little bit about the future, and it's sort of hard not when you talk about the future not to talk about AI. And I, not because it's a buzzword, but I really do.
It's a buzzword.
Well, yes, it
is.
Yeah, it is a buzzword, but we're not talking about it because it's just a buzzword.
Right.
So, like, how do you think about AI and its potential impact on Safelite going forward?
I mean, originally my thought was more of an efficiency driver, but I really think it's got to be tied back to our people-powered, customer-driven, which we started talking about. You know, those two things for me work together. We make decisions when they are both in line with people-powered and being customer-driven. So if it's easier for our people to interact with a customer and find and access data that they need more quickly, I mean, this is not always easy. Getting down to the VIN, getting down to a piece of glass is not very easy. And so how do we make it easier for our people to interact? How do we make it easier for our customers to interact? So we're going to start there. There's also things that, you know, AI is in just about everything anymore. It's not just, hey, let me go whip up an AI tool. It's in our marketing analytics tools. It's in our creative review response tools on our TV commercials. It's laced into everything. And so it's the question of the power of the purpose behind how you're using AI for me that really makes the difference, which is tying it back to those pillars. People-powered, customer-driven. Now, if we can have an efficiency savings and I don't need a manual process every time and I know it's reliable, great. But we also have to be careful with all of these different AI products out there because they can become unwieldy and get out of control. And I've also noticed teams have hesitated once in a while because you have to have a lot of capability you build. You start off with a great idea, but then you need audit capability. So sometimes it may be better to start with an end-to-end package that you learn from before you ask your teams to just go whip something up in one of the solutions that's out there. And so really balancing that and having someone really govern kind of where we are. And clients treat AI like cybersecurity, right? They want to know, what is the AI you're employing? How is it being used with my customer base? And then how do we monitor it? Because again, they don't want to have a problem on their side or have information being shared that shouldn't be.
And so for our audience, when Renee talks about clients as distinct from customers, those are insurance agencies that turn to Safelite to help them work with their customers on the processes for getting the glass repaired and replaced.
Yeah.
So you have two sets of customers, the car owner and then these big insurance companies you have to think about.
Exactly.
So as you think about the future, and it was interesting when you're talking about AI going back and maintaining the purpose, it reminded me of when you started to really focus on digital. Do you see a lot of parallels on sort of the digital journey that Safelite went on, I don't know, 6 years ago? It might even be longer now. And this AI journey, are there parallels to that, or do you see them as completely different sort of change arcs?
No, I mean, there's parallels. I would say digital, you have a digital team who is building, like, what does the website experience look like? What's the UI and user interface look like? AI can happen anywhere in the company, so it's a little different. But I will say a couple things. When we started our digital journey, we had no idea what it would do, and we didn't put pressure on ourselves to say it had to do X. And over time, it became our dominant channel well before COVID hit. And it actually helped us manage our growth and drive huge efficiency because we didn't need the staff of our contact centers as high. As we started to grow, we didn't reduce them. We kept all of our contact center team. In fact, a lot of what they do informed the digital design and made it even stronger. So how do you make these things become part of your DNA versus this thing on the side that you're just playing with? And it's that subtle growth. And that's really the approach we're going to take. We aren't going to have AI as one of our top 5 priorities this year for Safelite. That's not what our customers expect. It's not what our people are asking for. But it will be embedded and just part of the DNA as we grow and become better at it. And again, it won't have pressure points, but it will be part of how we serve, and it will definitely differentiate how we serve go forward. And I think broaden our competitive advantages compared to the competition.
Great. So a lot of what you talk about with AI and digital and all the things you do are about sort of how do these things help deliver on the purpose of the organization. And I would feel remiss talking about the purpose of the organization without talking about Safelite Foundation, because I know that is sort of central to what you think about, and it's a wonderful story. So maybe you talk a little bit about Safelite Foundation and sort of the connection with Foster Love.
Yeah, I'd be happy to. So we actually started our foundation in 2005. So this is our 20th anniversary. We're very excited about that. And historically, we wanted our leaders to participate in boards in their communities where they lived and worked across the U.S., not just in Columbus, where our headquarters is, because most of our stores are geographically dispersed. And we really wanted to support our people in giving back, but we also thought they could learn and be better leaders by being on boards, really expanding their mindset beyond just their day job. And so that's where a lot of the foundation funding then went to support. Well, as we've grown, the foundation's growing. And with that growth, we felt like it was time for us to really connect the purpose of our company to the foundation. And so we recently, last year, relaunched the foundation. And we really talk about our commitment to having an organization that's focused on providing safety, stability, and a sense of belonging, and helping people get back on the road in a safe way. And that really ties into who we are and what we do every day when we go to the office. And so when you think about that, that really connects us. And we wanted to find a national partner that we could have a bigger contribution with. And after going through a really big request for proposal kind of process, we ended up selecting Foster Love. Now, Foster Love really focuses on helping children that are entering the foster care system and are in the foster care system in their journey there. From giving them, a sweet pack or sweet case, which is actually different than a trash bag a police officer might give to you when you need to grab a few things in 5 minutes. They now get a duffel bag with a nice message from someone. And it has some of the necessities: a toothbrush, some toothpaste, a blanket, a teddy bear, someone to hug, things you may not think of when you have 5 minutes to grab your things. But now you have something walking into that house that's yours. We also are donating 100,000 service hours to build bicycles and skateboards and birthday boxes so that kids in the foster system still feel like kids, that they actually get a bike that's theirs, that they actually, if they want a skateboard, it's theirs, that someone remembers their actual birthday, and that they have a nice message of inspiration. And so it's really been something that, instead of joining a bigger national company that maybe we couldn't have participated in so locally, our technicians can now help build these things out without having to give their money. They may not want to give their money towards a foundation purpose, but they do want to give their time. And it's really the spirit of who we are with our Safelite spirit of giving back.
So I love that. And I think that's a good answer for me and the core part of the interview, and go into my 3 repeating end questions that I ask everyone. It's interesting. So if the story kept going with the foundation, I think we'd all be in tears. So as you look to the future, what's one leadership skill you think will be more important?
Agility. It's got to be agility. The world's changing so fast. I never could have predicted the last 5 years, and yet I've probably grown the most in the last 5 years, and I've seen my team grow the most in the last 5 years. I think we all are realizing a new world, and we're going to continue to. Change is constant, and so the ability to be agile, the ability to embrace that change is really huge.
Cool. Now, I give all of my guests a magic wand for a small amount of time, because I know how dangerous it can be if it gets out there. Yeah. So I'm giving you the magic wand for a little bit. What one change would you make to make organizations more humanity-centric?
It start with people. I would always start with people. When you care about your people, when you put your investments with your people, yeah, it can hurt your P&L, but it definitely comes back threefold, fourfold, tenfold. We always are hesitant to put it in there because we think it's not going to happen. But when your people are set up to succeed, there's nothing that can stop you.
What's interesting, I want to dig into that magic wand focus on people a little bit before I get to my last question, which is, it seems to me for that magic to take place, you also have to have a little bit longer term view of your organization, right? Because sometimes those, focusing on people may not be the thing that gives you the answer right in the moment, but is really about sustaining success. So do you think about those two things, like what is right for in the moment versus what's right for the longer term sort of success of Safelite?
Yes, definitely. And I think that's where we think about where do we need to serve? How are we going to continue to grow? What opportunities does that provide our people? How do we need to diversify our workforce to support that? And set them up for success before we enter something, and then they just have to hurry and catch up behind. It's building your people into your plan and your future horizon and your thinking versus having them react to it.
Awesome. And the last question for leaders listening and feeling inspired by your story, what's one actionable step they can take today to build a more human-centered organization?
I think for me, it's being genuine and actually not being afraid to be vulnerable. Care. It's not a bad thing to care about somebody and to go in and make sure they know that they matter, right? That you really, truly do want to listen to them. You didn't come with the answers. And when you show up that way, yeah, you can be too nice or soft in the middle or whatever you want to make the excuse of why you shouldn't be so caring. But I've only ever found that when you give, you get back 10 times as much. And that people believe in you. They'll go through a wall for anything you ask them to do if they really genuinely believe that you have their best interest in mind and that you care about them.
Well, that's awesome. Thank you, Renee. This is a great discussion.
Thank you as well. Been great. Thanks for having me.
Well, I hope you found my discussion with Renee as inspiring and insightful as I did. Her leadership reminds us that building a strong organization doesn't have to mean sacrificing empathy or human connection. In fact, focusing on humanity can and should be a key foundation to sustainable success. If this conversation resonated with you, share it with other leaders navigating the complexities of building purpose-driven organization in today's fast-moving world. And don't forget to subscribe for more discussions on how humanity-centric leadership is reshaping the future of business, technology, and society. Now let's move into the after show, a space where I'll reflect on key insights from my conversation with Renee and explore how leaders can apply these lessons to create cultures of empathy, innovation, and legacy at scale. Renee's leadership at Safelite is both inspiring and instructive. She hasn't just led a company, she's let it become the dominant player in its industry. What's remarkable is how she's done this without losing sight of the people who make it all possible. Her leadership balances performance, purpose, and care in a way that every leader can learn from. Here are the 5 key lessons that I took from our conversation. The first is that vulnerability builds trust and unlocks team potential. Renee openly shared how becoming CEO meant learning on the job and relying on others. You don't have to be the expert to set the vision and the direction, she said. That kind of openness fosters truth and encourages others to lead. In a fast-growing, industry-leading organization, one person can't know everything, and they shouldn't have to. The role of the leader is to show vulnerability, set direction, and create space for others to shine. The second lesson is that simplicity fuels focus and performance. Renee emphasized the importance of making things simple for frontline employees, whether it's scheduling a job or equipping technicians with tools that make their work easier. Simplicity is at the heart of Safelite's success. As she put it, our people are the fuel that powers our service. In my own work, I've often talked about complexity as an epidemic that drains company of energy and focus. Safelite's ability to strip away complexity allows its people to deliver great work consistently and focus on being human in their connection with other people. The third lesson is that change leadership requires clarity, consistency, and empathy. At Safelite, change is constant. Renee described 3 leadership practices that guide them: inspire and embrace change, plan for both now and next, and focus on organizational value. She's honest about the challenges. She said, every time we change a pay plan, I hear how much they like the old one. But she also knows that clear communication and genuine listening are key to helping people adapt. Leading change, especially in a changing environment, means balancing ambition with understanding. The 4th key lesson is that technology should make things easier and more human. Safelite uses technology to support both customers and employees, never to replace connection, but to enhance it. Renee shared how digital tools and AI help customers feel informed and supported, while also giving technicians the confidence and clarity they need. It's about tying it back to those pillars, people-powered and customer-driven, she said. To be an industry leader, you can't just chase technology for technology's sake. You have to use it to remove friction and help people do their best. The last key lesson I want to share is that true leadership leaves a lasting impact. One of the most meaningful moments in our discussion was hearing about Safelite's partnership with Foster Love. By giving employees a chance to help foster children through tangible acts of kindness, Safelite lives its purpose beyond profit. Renee's focus on creating safety, stability, and belonging, both for customers and for the community, is a reminder that the most respected companies lead with heart. Renee's story shows that industry leadership doesn't come from focusing only on market share or financial results. It comes from leading with vulnerability, simplifying complexity, embracing change, using technology with purpose, and staying true to values every single day. As you think about these lessons, ask yourself, how can I remove obstacles so my team can excel? Where can I show vulnerability to encourage others to lead? Am I guiding change with clarity and empathy? And how am I reinforcing purpose in both big and small ways? Thank you for joining me for this after show. I hope you enjoyed this episode. Thanks for tuning in to Humanity at Scale, Redefining Leadership podcast. Remember, true leadership isn't only about achieving short-term results. It's about creating a lasting, positive impact on all of the people you touch. Join me next time as we uncover more insights and strategies for humanity-centric leadership. Until then, I'm Bruce Temkin, encouraging you to lead with purpose and empathy and to be the spark that elevates humanity at scale.